Well, let's start with Geno Smith, Heath. Let's continue our JSN discussion here. The second half of the year, he threw like 36 times per game or something like that. I can look that up, but they've got very pass heavy late in the year. And all right, what are you worried about? Where do you have him ranked? Talk about Geno.
I think it's two sides because on one, I'm expecting a little bit of regression from Geno last year. I mean, I was making the joke about what Zay Jones had done in his career before last year. The difference, obviously, is that Geno was actually good. But like, as a rule, I bet against the age 32 breakout, repeating that at age 33. But he was legitimately one of the best passers in the NFL last year. And he has DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and JSN at wide receiver. And so I'm concerned, like, what if he's actually a little bit better as a passer than he was last year, and they throw 36 times a game all year long, and he's just a top 6 fantasy quarterback again? The flip side of that is there's a lot of guys who did not perform like they did the year before or 2 years ago that I'm expecting to bounce back. Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, a lot of guys that Geno Smith was better than last year that I just think, yeah, but that's close to Geno's ceiling. Those other guys have a lot higher ceiling, so I'm going to draft the other guys first. It's possible he's just better than all those guys. Trevor Lawrence. Like, it's possible that he's just still better than Trevor Lawrence. He has better weapons.
Do you think he can be better than he was last year? He finished 8th per game.
Yes, I think he could.
Okay. Dave, do you think Geno Smith can be better than 8th per game?
First of all, you can worry about being wrong on Geno and say, you know what, I'm going to move him up a little bit and still take him in round 9 and not lose much sleep over it. Okay. Are you reaching on Geno Smith as like the 11th or 12th quarterback off the board in your league? This would be like round 3 for those of you in Superflex or 2 QB. Maybe in those formats, you might lose a little sleep about reaching for Geno, but in a 1 QB league, you're not going to worry about it either way. So if you believe that there's a chance that Geno could be better, just go take him in round 9 before anybody else even thinks about it.
Do you think he can be better than he was last year?
I think he can be worse. I'm nervous about him playing this well again. The addition of JSN is made to make life a little bit easier for him. Now there's another outlet for underneath throws. Teams that try and take the deep ball away, they're going to have to worry about Smith and Jigba now. What about the teams that recognize that Smith and Jigba needs to be, covered closely? I still feel like Geno is going to have problems against teams that bring a good pass rush against them. They see a decent amount of those. I believe he does not have a good PSOS grade. I can look it up for you if you'd like. Here's what's in Geno's favor. Over the last 5 years, the highest passing rate the Seahawks have had?
Last year.
Nope. 2020, 59.8% of the time they threw. So about 60% of the time.
Oh, you mean, I'm sorry. I thought you meant like a NFL QB rating.
No. I'm pass rate.
Pass rate.
Not QB rating. So that's pretty good. Last year, they were at 59.3. So half of a percentage point lower than their 5-year high. And if they just added Smith and Jigma, so you'd think that they're going to throw more. They might become one of those teams that throws the ball 61, 62% of the time. He's got a middle of the pack PSOS, 17th. Good early start to the season. I wonder if there's a way that like Geno actually gets you off to a good start, and then defenses really figure out what Seattle's doing by like October. And then there's like a big stretch where Seattle's passing game just struggles.
I don't like, and this is wrong. I think Seattle might win the NFC West.
Oh, no, they could.
And I don't know, unless Lockett falls off or JSN's 1 year was a fluke or Metcalf gets hurt. I don't know how you figure you can't guard all 3 of those guys.
And plus, they have the running game.
They want to throw more out of the backfield. That's going to help their pass rate.
Yeah, I talked about the Dolphins' offense perhaps getting solved a little bit late last year, but they didn't really have a running game that they could rely on. Like, if you can solve the Seahawks offense, that's a failure on the offensive coaching staff because they are loaded. And their offensive line looks like it's probably going to be pretty good, at least right now as we speak right now.
Yeah.
I think their right tackle's coming off major surgery, though. I don't remember. But, yeah, all right. Let's move on. DeAndre Swift. is someone that Heath is worried about being wrong about. He was actually number 17 per game in PPR last year. He was number 23 per game in non-PPR, but he only had 3 games all year with more than 8 carries. And, we remember the story with DeAndre Swift. What are you worried about being wrong about with DeAndre Swift?
I mean, he's a second-round draft pick who has shown flashes of being elite as a playmaker, going to play behind probably the best offensive line in football. What if he just gets all the touches that Miles Sanders did last year, only is better and stays healthy? I think it's unlikely, but I don't like to hold injuries against guys. Certain guys have enough to where I get to the point to where I do. But if he just stays healthy and lives up to his potential in this situation, I mean, he could average 6 yards per carry this year.
He's RB24 right now since June 1st on NFC. This is DeAndre Swift. He's going after Alexander Madison, although I don't remember.
We're all considerably higher than the consensus on Madison.
Cam Akers, Dameon Pierce. No, I would say don't pay attention to the Madison one because Dalvin Cook was released after June 1st, so I'd have to change the date range. But Cam Akers, Dameon Pierce, DeAndre Swift, Rashad White, James Conner. That's the range we're talking about here, round 6.
And I'm pretty much drafting all those guys ahead of Swift.
Same.
Where do you think he would go if Rashad Penny were not on the team?
I don't know how much that matters.
Oh, that matters. That definitely matters. We're talking about a player that's definitely, as long as they're all healthy, I don't know if there's a world where Swift is dominating playing time over Penny.
I don't think anybody expects how many games do people really expect Penny to play? Like, you're thinking maybe you get a good
like 3. Yeah. Like 3 games they'll be together for. 2 in September and then 1 random game like around November 1st.
Okay.
But that's why Swift's value is so low. That's why we've got him ranked so low. We're scared of taking him with one of our first 7 picks, and then by week 4, he's either hurt and is going to average 0.0 yards per carry, or by week 4, the Eagles say, oh, he's underwhelming and he's only getting 4.1 yards per carry. And we've got other guys that we're going to mix and match with. Plus they've got that one other player. Who's that guy in Philadelphia that gets a lot of touchdowns right at the goal line? Who's that?
I know, but you're talking about an extremely explosive player on a team that creates a lot of explosive plays. I think it's a terrific fit. I'd be happy to take DeAndre Swift in the 6th round. I hope he stays that late because I acknowledge that he's injury prone, but I think Rashad Penny's the most injury prone player I've ever seen, basically. So, I mean,
besides Will Fuller.
Yeah. Sir, it's unbelievable with Penny. So you might have to wait a little while for Swift, but to really take off. But I just think that he doesn't need a lot of touches in this offense to be at least a number 2 running back, which is what he was last year. All right. How about, I shouldn't have the final word. I'm sorry. Does everybody sort of agree with that? He can be a number 2 running back without a lot of touches?
I did a projection on him where if he averages 4.7 targets per game, 6.8 carries per game, line that up against his career averages over 13 games, he can get you north of 12 PPR points per.
No, that's great. It's a lot of targets, but
I don't think that's so bad for a round 6 or 7 pick, but it's a matter of that projection being right and him being available.
Yeah, I think
team that's got 2 other running backs and 1 other quarterback that are going to run the football.
Yeah, no, Heath is saying that he's not going to get that many targets. Just seems unlikely.
He averaged 5 targets per game in Detroit last year.
Right, but this team threw the fewest passes to the running backs in the NFL last year.
Well, so
either
they acquire him to try and get that part of their offense going, or they acquired a guy that they're not going to use his best strength for, which is a dumb thing to do.
No, I think there's a place in the middle of that and 5 targets per game, though, I guess, right? Heath, where would you put it?
The dumbest thing to do would be to take targets away from A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, or Dallas Goedert and give them to a running back, any running back.
Sure.
But
Goedert, I would rather throw it to Swift than Goedert.
I mean, if you're throwing it behind the line of scrimmage, I would agree. If you're throwing it 10 yards downfield, I think I'd rather throw it to Goedert. Yeah. Swift's how he was as a pass catcher is he's another one of those guys like Ramondre Stevenson, not to the extremes, where I think Swift looks very good on a yards per route run basis and very mediocre on a yards per target basis, which to me is more of a reflection of the fact that Jared Goff and Ben Johnson had designed passes to Swift when he was on the field, and he didn't run a lot of routes where he didn't earn targets. But when he actually was targeted, it's not like he was more efficient relative to league average on a yards per rush basis than he was on a yards per target basis.
All right, let's move on here. Let's go to Cam Akers, another player that Heath is worried about being wrong about. What do you got?
Yeah, I've got him as a low-end number 2 running back, and I think like the way he finished last year and the way that Sean McVay is talking about Cam Akers being a focal point of the Rams offense, if, and this is a big if Matthew Stafford plays 17 games and this offense is just average instead of garbage, then I think Cam Akers could be a top 12 running back. Like if they're going to give him 20 to 25 touches per game and they could just be a league average offense, then he could be a league winner at where he's being drafted. He could be the Josh Jacobs of 2023.
Okay, Cam Akers. Dave, 30 seconds.
I'm worried that we're all too high on him. I've got him 59th. Jamie has him 60th. Heath has him 62nd. So we're all in that late round 5, early round 6 range. That offensive line's a problem. This is a team. The defense is going to be a problem for the Rams. I don't think it's going to be as good as it's been. And so I'm a little bit worried about just how much work Cam Akers will get from week to week. But I am optimistic about the talent, which was a problem for me a year ago. I wasn't sure what we were going to get with Cam Akers. The reports out of training camp weren't great. He finished last year strong. Let's see what the training camp reports are like this year before we make a decision about moving him down.
Certainly
I'm
not
thinking more about moving him up than down for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So kind of different views there on Akers. Dave more worried about him being a bust, and Heath more worried about him being a breakout and not being high enough on Cam Akers. And the last guy on your list is Darren Waller. Last guy you'll be talking about today, Heath, or at least presenting. Darren Waller. He was tight end 7 if you remove week 5 when he played like 4 snaps. Azer stat there, tight end 7 per game. But anyway, Darren Waller.
Yeah, I've got him ranked like tight end 10 or 11, I think, maybe 9 through 11 somewhere. And I've kind of bumped it up a couple of times to get to that level. I guess I'm worried both directions, but I'm more worried about being wrong in that he actually makes an impact for Daniel Jones. And so Daniel Jones maybe throws more than 20 touchdown passes. Because I do think that Waller, if he stays healthy and hasn't lost a step, could still be one of the elite options. I have a hard time projecting or ranking him there because the passing production in Daniel Jones' offense just hasn't been something that's going to produce an elite weapon at any position. But we've seen for other quarterbacks, adding a really good weapon can make a big increase in the quarterback's efficiency. If Waller impacts Jones instead of Jones impacting Waller, then I'm going to miss out on a great year from Waller.
Okay. Yeah. So, I think like for most of the guys that we're talking about, they have to have either pretty big upside or pretty big downside, right? Or otherwise, why would we be worried? So you obviously see potential for him to have some pretty big upside, I guess is what you were just saying. He could have a big year. Yeah.
But also he's a tight end, and we know tight ends generally need touchdowns to have a top 5 season or a great season. There's not a lot of low touchdown guys, and he's playing on a team that, threw 17 touchdown passes last year and has a quarterback that's only thrown more than 20 once.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you feel that way about the touchdowns? Because I feel like to be a top 5 tight end, you could easily have 5 touchdowns.
Well, 5 touchdowns might be 33% of the team's touchdowns.
That's fine, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's just I feel like if he's gonna be a top 5 tight end, I think it's gonna be catches that propel him there for Waller.
And yet, that's still, when you're talking about a quarterback who has one season with more than 300 completions, like if he's going to have a bunch of catches, he's going to have 25 to 30% of the team's completions.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is Darren Waller.